Hi, welcome to Tales from the Sky Lounge. It's a podcast about business, consulting, and venture investing. We get out there in the world and we talk to people who are making it happen and we get their stories. If you could like and subscribe, it would really help us get our story out there. So today we have Adam Lehde. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Todd.
Great to have you today. Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to chatting.
Yeah. Well, why don't you kick us off and who are you and what are you working on?
Yeah, for sure. So Adam Lehde, I run a company with a co-founder called Happen Technologies, and we do software development. We do both custom software projects and some staffing partnerships. So located here in St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up around here. My partner's from Ukraine, so we met and do have some staffing out of Eastern Europe. So looking forward to chatting with you today.
Wow, very cool. So a lot to unpack there. So first question, you're an owner of a small business. There's always an interesting origin story. Where were you and what were you doing? Tell us that story about how Happen came together, and then how did you meet a guy from around the world to start? For sure. It's kind of a cool thing, right?
Yeah, not one I first saw coming, for sure. Especially not working in Ukraine. I grew up in a tiny town in Illinois that no one's ever heard of, and didn't see myself traveling the world and back and forth, working with a bunch of Ukrainian people. Couldn't have even told you where that was, honestly. But so Nicole and I met in 2016. So my background's in mobile development, and jumped around at a few different companies here in St. Louis before landing at the national car rental team at Enterprise. And Macola started there around, I think, in 2016. And we became good friends, started to learn a little bit about his passion for Ukraine and the people back there and the talent, honestly. He really had this vision of starting an outsourcing company back to Ukraine. I, on the other hand, hated outsourcing. I kind of had seen my career go from, several years of hands-on development, kind of working my way up to a senior engineer. But really with a passion for product. I wasn't quite as passionate about solving, a problem with the right architecture or the right, technology. I was more passionate about solving the right problem. And so I found myself in a lot of meetings with stakeholders and, business analysts and whatnot, that engineers weren't typically invited to. Yeah. So I eventually knew that, my career path was headed towards, product management rather than development. And so hearing about Macola's passion for the talent in Ukraine and kind of pushing back and forth on each other of me wanting nothing to do with outsourcing based on my past experiences, and him being pretty convincing about the fact that things could be different and certainly were in Ukraine. He convinced me to try it out, and I convinced him that we needed to be more than just an outsourcing company. And so we built out a business model of, a hybrid team where we have the strategy and the client engagement side of things here. And we utilize the excellent talent back in Ukraine. And we've since expanded, a little bit outside Ukraine as well. But that's kind of where we kick things off and do a ton of work.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got off the phone with somebody, in the kind of investor realm and we're talking about projects and that kind of thing and what they will and won't fund. And I think I brought up outsourcing as a thing, and they were very specific about, well, we don't want to outsource to country X, but we do like when it's a hybrid model, so when there's a definite US presence, and then take advantage of the talent that's elsewhere for a different price point or a different set of talents. So I think that's super valuable to have that as a differentiator.
I think I just hadn't seen, prior to this, I just hadn't seen that, work. And I hadn't, I clearly hadn't, worked with the right firms or the firms that were doing it right. I had seen a lot more, just hurry up and put people in seats, hurry up and put, and rotate through, you're constantly working with a different person, people turning over a lot. And I just thought that's what outsourcing was. And so to see it done so differently and then be able to even expand upon that has been great, honestly.
So, my early days, I had a gig at the phone company, Bell South, back when that was a thing. And you'd have these folks that, people would sign a 6-month contract, and then they'd come and they kind of write some crappy code for a little bit for cheap, and then they'd be gone. Right. And there's like a policy that you had to keep people rotating through, or else, it's kind of weird. So that used to be what we'd call outsourcing or staff aug. But now it's a lot more sophisticated than that, right? I mean, you guys bite off, you're a true partner where you look for a project or a longer term.
So, we partner with companies in a couple different ways, and some of them even I would say we have two different engagement models. In some of our partnerships, we engage in both models. So, the custom software side, like we're biting off a big chunk of the strategy and helping them build out that strategy, and then implementing it for them, and then later supporting it. And then but even on the staffing side of things, like it's not a 6-month. It may start as a 6-month engagement occasionally, but our goal is to be there years, right? And we have multiple people who have been on their contracts for years. We had one girl just wrapped up a QA contract. That contract's been active for almost 5 years, I think, with the same exact position on the same team. So wow. That's what we're after, not the like quick go in, get back out. We want to build the long-term partnerships for sure.
Yeah. Well, and then, I've had exposure to some of your talent, truly smart people in Ukraine. I mean, like master's, PhD. I mean, it's not uncommon to get somebody of that caliber that just wants to write code for you.
I appreciate that.
Well, so Ukraine's an interesting part of the world. Have you, obviously you've probably been over there a couple times. I mean, what was your initial, kind of cultural impression of Midwesterner it makes its way to Europe?
I'll clarify your question. So initial impression when we first started working there, or impression when I first went over there, because those were a couple of years apart and pretty different answers.
So what'd you think? I mean, how you kind of walk us through that journey of?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with
you're cool if you're from Ukraine, and Ukraine must be kind of interesting, right?
So I'll tell you the first time we ever staffed somebody. I'll tell you about that kind of cultural experience for me, and then we can move to whenever I actually went over there. So first person we ever staffed was with a local a development shop here in St. Louis. We still work with them quite a bit, and I was on a call with them and their end client and our developer. We'd staffed a senior .NET developer with them, and it was kind of a daily stand-up type call, and it was their first day working, and they went ahead and asked her, what are you doing? Clearly, just onboarding was for the most part her answer. But she's like, well, I was waiting for so-and-so to reach out to me, and I didn't hear from them. So I just went ahead and picked up a task, and I did it. And I went ahead and put a pull request out there, and no one is responding to my messages. So I went ahead and picked up another one. So I hope that's okay. And I was like,
heck yeah.
That was a little direct in front of the client. Like, I was a little like, man, okay, hopefully that's okay. And so they're like, okay, we'll contact you right away and we'll get you something. Well, then the next day, same exact thing. Well, I've done 2 more tasks, and I still haven't heard back from so-and-so, because this person was super busy who was trying to help her out. And he's like, I'm so sorry. You're right. I did not reach out to you. I will contact you. And she's like, well, I've just been doing tasks. I might be doing them wrong. I'm not sure if I'm, but I don't want to be doing nothing. So I've been cranking out what I can. And so that directness I was not used to. It was okay. In my previous outsourcing experience, it was very like, yeah, sure, we can do whatever you want kind of thing. And it was very passive. And this was very like direct. And now, granted, this dev was probably even more direct than a lot of our devs, but she got a lot of stuff done, and she was excellent. And she worked there about 1.5 or 2 years. And when she left, the client was like, "Can you go find us another one for her?" Like, they were so like, excited about the way that she got things done and just very efficient. So I think that culture shock was, I won't say culture shock, but it was new to me. Like that, being that direct and that, like, no, I can't do that. Like you asked me and no, I don't think that's reasonable. Here's what I can do. And I'm like, Oh, okay. I thought you would say yes to that because I'm just used to hearing yes. And so, but I love it. Like it's way more effective conversation. You get ownership. Like if they say they're going to do it, they own it. And yeah, it's great. When I can send a message, and if they say, yeah, they're going to do it, I don't have to check it in the morning. I can just pull up a meeting and pull open the link where my deliverables should be, and I know they're there. So that's a great feeling. So
what you see is what you get versus Midwestern nice where,
yeah. My business partner, McCullough, I actually was joking with some friends about it this weekend because he lives pretty close to me over in St. Charles. And I was telling him like regularly when he first moved over here, he's like, does that person like me or are they just being nice? Because like it's a common thing here, right? Like you're just nice to people. It doesn't matter if you like them. So that's funny.
Yeah. All right. How about the first time you went over there? What did you learn?
First time I went over there, 2020. I've only been there once because unfortunately with the circumstances that are going on over there right now, I haven't been able to go back. Probably would be. I mean, I could go, but my wife wouldn't. Probably wouldn't like it. But we went over in 2021. My wife and I for about 2 weeks, and honestly, it was the best trip of my life. Like it was a blast. So we flew into Lviv through Turkey, which was another side story, but I got stuck in Turkey.
We'll ask you that question later.
But so we flew into Lviv, got in really late at night because of our delay. Like we're supposed to get in the morning and ended up getting in really late at night, but they still wanted us, McCullough and his now wife, then girlfriend, wanted to show us the city. And so we went out on the town at like midnight and, went to some cool restaurants and a couple bars. And I don't think we went to bed before 2 a.m. a single night that entire trip. Like oh man, like, and part of this is because of the cult. What kind of shift? Like, there's like a whole shift in the technology space so that they can work a lot more U.S. hours. Like their overlap is like they're 8 hours off of our Midwest time slot, and so if they shift their day by starting at 10 or 11 a.m., they can overlap till lunch or later, for any time zone in the U.S. So that pushes their nightlife later because they're getting up later, they're working later. So we were just up so late, just every night. But it was an absolute blast. Like there's so much rich culture there. The buildings were just hundreds and hundreds of years old, but so well maintained and incredible food, just super welcoming people. Like it was awesome, super cool.
And Ukraine's a big place too, right? We think of it as like one little state in America, but it's really bigger than that, right?
Yeah, I saw very little of it, to be honest. Our goal, so when we flew into Lviv, our goal was to spend some time there, go to this kind of, I'll say like a retreat type weekend, like a destination type place up in the mountains where they do a lot of skiing and stuff like that. We went and spent some time there, and then spent some time with McCullough and his family back in their village where he grew up as a kid. Okay. And so we did all that, but we were going to try to squeeze in a trip to Kyiv, but it was like 6 hours, I want to say, maybe even 7 hours driving. And it was just, not reasonable for the first trip. But yeah, so it takes, I want to say it's like a trip from New York to Chicago to get across, to get across a good chunk of the state. So it's a long way. Stuff's very, very spread out.
And then your talent, is it from all over, or do you kind of have like little pockets?
Yeah, so it's kind of a couple pockets. So so we have 3 partnerships in Ukraine. 2 are right on the border of Poland, which Lviv. So it's just a couple hours or less from Poland, and then 1 south of Kyiv, a couple hours south of Kyiv. And so those are where our partners are based. We've hired people from around a couple other cities. Like we have a couple people in Kyiv. Actually, one of the guys well is based in Kyiv, and so a couple people that are remote, but a lot of people work out of the offices, in those 2 cities.
And from one of the things, as we've worked together, that surprised me, or kind of was, oh, okay, I didn't understand that moment. Was the people that are in software engineering and work these global jobs are truly elite people. Like they're very, very talented, but they're very privileged within that country as well. And then insulated, and
it took me a while. It shouldn't have taken this long for me to realize why, but like, I see so many resumes. You mentioned like, PhDs and stuff. I saw so many resumes with like crazy schooling. Like, we have a senior QA who worked for us for a long time, who like was a practicing scientist who taught at a university in the evenings. PhD level instructor, and a couple different literally rocket scientists.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon at all. And so it wasn't until, I don't know, probably a year ago or so, like I was reflecting on that with somebody and realized like it makes total sense because of the fact that the way the economy boomed in technology there, like people started leaving all kinds of jobs. Like they'd go to school for whatever they were interested in. They would get a job in that field, and then they would realize, your top people in those jobs they're the go-getters, right? They're the ones who are chasing the dream, right? And then they realize, wow, the dream is really in tech because I can make 4 times this if I go in technology. So they go back to school, or they, start taking some side classes, and next thing they know, they've jumped careers over into tech and they're making way more money. So it's the level of education is crazy.
Wow. And then, we talk about like the economy shifting around, technology is ever changing if nothing else. But, since, the COVID stuff, the pandemic, I think that changed a lot of work habits where remote was more embraced than it was before. If you're going to go remote, may as well go for it, get the best talent on the planet, wherever it is. Do you find that was a shift? Like, is that still a thing? Are you seeing like return to work kind of impacting that, or is there still an openness?
That's interesting. I haven't talked about that in a while, but I think it was a huge shift for the Midwest, right? Like, I don't think it shook California very much. If you think about, they were already, the startup culture was already, work remote. They may have some people in the office that, playing ping pong and stuff whenever they wanted to, but like, I think that the top growing younger companies already knew you really needed to allow remote talent to get the people you really want working there. Yeah. But I think the Midwest has some of those companies, but they also have a lot of like big giants who have grown, slow, pull from the bootstraps and build out a company over many, many decades. And I think they're a little more resistant to change. And COVID kind of forced that change on them. And so I think it was a big culture shift for them. I was at Enterprise, and they made that shift to work at home. They were allowing it some, like they'd let you work at home a day or two a week, certainly depending on the team you were on. And I was certainly on one of the more flexible ones, but to just up and let everybody work from home that possibly could was a huge shift for them. So, and I do think it shifted salaries all over the country. It shifted talent that people could reach. So, I don't know to what degree I know it's went back. Like there's definitely a lot of companies pulling people back in, but I think it's already had time to go back again. Like they got so much flack for bringing people back in that then I think they started to back off again. Yeah. So, I think it's kind of settled in now to where people are like, well, if you're close enough, we want you to come into the office, a few times a week. If you really hate it and raise too much fuss, okay, fine, stay home, I guess. Like, I think they've kind of settled in. So,
yeah.
But
I kind of think, we talk about this a lot with a lot of people. There's some jobs that you're just grinding. Like, man, I don't care where your cave is, just go there and grind. It could be anywhere. But then there's a lot of jobs where it's creative and coordinated, collaborative. Maybe some of the more senior level jobs where you really, being in the same place with the same whiteboard, so to speak, really does help. So it's kind of this weird, like, well, totally remote's not great for everybody, it's important to have that option for a lot of people, but like
Yeah, I
everybody
totally
in the
agree.
office doesn't make sense either.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like I was an agile coach for a while. Whenever I was kind of working my way towards product, I went through project management and agile, scrum mastering, agile coaching, that kind of thing. And I really valued the in-person thing of teams just getting around a big whiteboard and brainstorming and whatnot. And it was kind of difficult at first for me to shift to, I'm not in person with my team a lot of the time, but technology has made it where it's much easier to do that. And I think especially, the younger generation, but I think honestly in tech, even older generations like that have stayed up with tech, like they've gotten used to the technologies and collaborating over technology that I don't think is as much of a hindrance to not be in person. Like I think it's more important to have the right people on the team, and that far outweighs the ability to be in person. And so, whereas it is nice to be able to get together and sit in a room and, see that people, at least most people, have feet, once in a while, it's not necessary. So yeah.
I can remember very vividly coming to a company that was cybersecurity, a lot of really geeky, nerdy, introverted people.
Mm-hmm.
We all had cubicles, and then it wasn't Slack yet or Teams. It was IM, right? And then rather than getting up, going over, say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" They would type to each other, and then I thought, God, this is so weird. But then it was like, oh yeah, this is like way easier, And then you have like a record, and it's like it's kind of funny how things change and norms shift, and it really is kind of a communication skill set. We used to have to write, type with typewriters, 5-page, 5-paragraph essays. And now it's kind of, you have to figure out Zoom and what your camera looks like and all that stuff.
Yeah. I feel like it's changed in the development space. I feel like that requirement has changed a lot of, I don't know if it's changed the people or changed who like it attracts, but I feel like there was this stigma that developers were these, super nerdy people who sit in their cubes and don't know how to talk to anyone. And there are those people, right? Like we all have those friends, but it's not like that's most people. Like that's kind of the exception of the people who prefer that. Like there are some guys who just are like, can you leave me alone so I can do my work? And you give them tasks accordingly so they can just crank them out. But I feel like it's a lot more common these days to have the devs who want to be involved in the business discussions. They want to be, talking about what is the actual business value of this feature versus not doing it or doing it differently. And they don't want to just be handed, tasks and crank them out. So,
yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting shift, but I think it's kind of came from the way culture went and technology culture, I guess I'll say.
Yeah. Well, you talk about startup culture invading the Midwest. So, yeah. That's it, right? It's not just like work habits. It's like, hey, how do, I want to be a partner in the business, emotionally, intellectually, if not economically.
For sure.
I want to understand kind of what's going on, so I can help. Go back to Ukraine for a second. So, another trend is, the obvious, hostilities in Ukraine. Everybody's like, well, I don't know if I want to, it's dangerous. Your wife won't let you go. Some parts of it are definitely more dangerous than others, but
for sure,
there's a lot of safe places. With the election, we have a pretty good chance that, all that could kind of come to a stop here. What, assuming that does happen, what's that look like for Ukraine as a country? Is it, an acceleration? Is it business as usual? Is it going to be, what do you think is going to happen if 3 to 6 months from now we find ourselves kind of done and rebuilding, whatever that means?
Yeah, I think speaking as a country, not as a business, I think it highly depends on what's decided, right? Like what's what kind of resolution is brought forth, because I think it's, the coming administration talks a big game, right? They certainly seem to have some plans that they feel like they can implement fairly quickly. I think there's some fear that to implement something fast is going to require quite a bit of secession on, both parties that may feel forced. So I think, Ukraine definitely wants the war over. They definitely, they didn't want it in the first place, right? They don't want Russians coming and invading their home. So I think there's a ton of desire to find a resolution. Whether or not what's proposed will be forced versus, or like coerced, I guess I'll say, versus a plan that works well for people. I don't really know. I don't, it's just speculation at this point. But I certainly hope so. I hope it's, gives people a way to move forward in any sort of, normalcy, because there's certainly a large portion of the country that has, very difficult, daily lives. Mm-hmm. Thankfully for our, most of our developers, it's a heavy emotional toll, but it's not a major physical toll on their day-to-day work lives, right? Like they're hundreds and hundreds of miles from active conflict, and not like, having to go fight a war in the morning and come back home and then develop. Like their day-to-day life, they can go order coffee and sit on a patio and drink coffee in the morning, but like whether they want to is different, right? Because their emotional state is like their country's at war, their homeland is being fought for. They are losing family and friends, so there's certainly an emotional toll that is taken, and certainly want to see some action from the U.S.'s part and whatever they can do to help.
Yeah, well, let's all hope everything gets calm and everybody can focus on more productive things.
For sure. Quickly. I would love to be able to. This was not on my business plan of,
right.
The day this started, I was like, I'll check the playbook, but I don't think I know how to run this one.
Right. So. Well, I remember you telling me a story about how one of your devs was, his whole paycheck was going donated to the cause, right? And
entire time he worked with us, he donated his entire paycheck. Yeah.
That's incredible. Some really good people.
Yeah, for sure. They just consider the ones who are working are just, they see that as their mission. That's the way they can contribute, and they just donate the hell out of their salaries and find. We have people who on the weekends go and work at food banks, packaging food, and just whatever they can do to help out the people who are actively fighting.
So if everything calms down and we get going again, there's some spare cycles in everybody's lives. Do you see the startup culture permeating over there? We're going to see some like really cool startups emerging.
Oh yeah,
all these
for sure.
Really talented folks.
I feel like Ukraine's has always had that. I can't tell you the number of times where I've sent a link to Mikola about like, hey, should we check out this product? And he's like, sure. Did you know it was built in Ukraine? Like,
no kidding.
And like it happens often. And I think there's even some of that going on right now, but a lot of it's war focused, right? Like there's all these drone companies and all this things going on, but it's all a lot more focused on helping the conflict be resolved.
Yeah.
But for sure, I think we'll see that, and I think their technology sphere is so strong that it'll be a big part of rebuilding their economy for sure.
Yeah, very cool. I want to go back to something you said earlier. Your early career, you were a mobile dev, right? So that's been a crazy arc, of innovation. So how did you get into mobile development? What was that like? Were you just kind of the next guy up and you thought, it's something new, I'll try it? How'd you get into mobile?
Yeah, I wish I could say like that I was like always interested in it and like had the first iPhone when it came out, and but I didn't, and I wasn't. And so I went to school for development, but it was before mobile was really a thing. Like the iPhone came out while I was in college, and a couple rich friends had it. and I'll probably get a message for like, I wasn't rich. I just had, I get some crap for that. But,
a little exotic, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, but get out of college. I had a friend from my church back home who worked at a company who was trying out some mobile stuff, and they had some internships that they wanted to give out, and there were 3 positions, and he got me one of those positions. So I came over, and I was driving an hour each way to St. Louis to do an internship, making very little. Honestly, it was horrible. The internship was genuinely terrible. I worked with, I'm not going to say everybody there was terrible, but there was definitely some really unhealthy culture.
Okay.
And worked underneath a mentor who was pretty showy and would, say, regularly talk about how much he paid for his clothes and, talk crap about how much other people did not pay for their clothes and tell people to, dress nicer and whatever. And that kind of culminated with the end of my internship. The other 2 interns quit. I was the only person to finish the internship. One quit the second day, and then the other one quit after 1 month. And then as I was leaving, my mentor, who was the senior architect for the team, took me in his office, and he told me, "Look, I can tell you're, a little upset, and I want to, give you some tips for life. So I'm going to speak to you not as your mentor, but as your friend here." This guy was not my friend, but he said, "So you're not cut out for this job. You're not going to make it in technology ever, and you just don't have what it takes to be a developer. You need to go back to school, and you need to pick something else. I don't want you to get hurt, and the longer you try this, the more you're going to get hurt. So I just want you to know that." And I don't know what my face looked like, but I'm sure it wasn't happy. And so he's like, "Maybe if you really, really push, you can, I think maybe you could do some manual QA work or something," which is one, I couldn't even do manual QA. I don't have the attention span. He was wrong. I don't have the skill set to even do that. And so he tells me all this. Well, then I left his office, clearly pissed. And he about an hour later, he comes and gets me and brings me back into his office. He's like, "Look, I can tell you took that pretty hard. I'm going to give you 5 actionable items of if you follow these 5 steps, maybe there's a chance I'm wrong. Maybe there's a chance I'm wrong. And you can actually be successful." And he's like, "So here's your 5 steps. Step 1 is you have got to put your family second." He's like, I know you're married young and but I can tell that you put your family first. And that is not going to happen in this career. You can't." He's like, "I stuff towels under the door so I can't hear my kids cry." He's like, you need to put your family second. I have no idea what he said after that because I was stopped listening. But he said those 5 things. He said 5 things. So I left there and I walked out of there that day with my head held high, whatever I'm going to do, I'm not going to do that. And I threw a resume together and put it out there for, whatever I could find. Got all kinds of calls because the amount of people in St. Louis with iOS and Android on their resume was
0.
Very few. maybe 1.
Yes.
And I got several calls and ended up interviewing at a place called Aspect. It's more known here as Quilogy. It had been bought out recently. And interviewed with a manager named Chris Hayes. And we hit it off like 2 peas in a pod. The second I had that interview was I called my wife after, and she was a little, worried about, is this just what the tech industry is? Are they all going to treat you like this? And I was like, I don't know what the next steps are, but I know I got the job. Because him and I hit it off awesome and have been good friends since. He's been at a few companies around St. Louis, and we stay in touch and loved that place. Excellent culture. Excellent people. I learned a lot. And just kind of from there, built up my confidence and realized that, one bad place doesn't mean that that's the way life's got to be. So,
so culture
after that,
and,
started learning mobile, for real. And, kind of jumped around between Android and iOS for a while. And before landing on native iOS is what I really enjoyed doing the most. And stayed doing that for several years.
So you were Java guy, right?
At first, yeah.
Wow.
Java first, then iOS. I switched to Objective-C for iOS, and then eventually Swift.
Wow.
So
very cool. So you ever mess? I know you probably have an opinion, but God, it's like this never-ending quest for all these cross-platform development things. You just want them to work. You're like, if I could just...
Yeah, it's the dream, right? Can I write something one single time and put it on any single device someone hands me? Yeah.
Is it there? Is it going to get there?
Yeah, so I have messed with it. Actually, the job that I went to after Aspect, I worked in PhoneGap. I think later was Cordova.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's still using it. I haven't ran into it.
Ionic, I think, finally sold out like last year.
Okay.
But it's still a thing.
Haven't ran into it in recent years. But we built a delivery app for Anheuser-Busch in PhoneGap. It was not my decision to use PhoneGap. It was already the platform. But so it's like jQuery mobile based, and worked in that for like 2 years. You had to build all the local like plugins, all the native plugins built in like Android and iOS. We had to build them all twice anytime you wanted to touch the device frameworks. But it was not great. That kind of set the tone for what I thought of cross-platform. Then at Enterprise, the conversation was had quite a bit about switching to React Native. It had been around a little while. Facebook was using it clearly, and then a couple other bigger companies were getting on it. Enterprise then hired a company to build out the Enterprise mobile app. So I was on National Car Rental, and then they had someone build out the website, and then the Enterprise app, and they use React Native for that. And I assume used React to build out the website to share some code base. And it went okay. Like I think they liked how fast it was built. It certainly didn't feel like a native mobile app, and the big team of mobile developers we were on like hated on it because it felt like you were using a website, even though it was technically an app. So still kind of hated React Native and just any cross-platform at that point. Pushed pretty hard against it. In fact, we petitioned against it kind of as developers. We put together reasons why we shouldn't use it and stuff. And to leadership's credit, they listened. They did not convert National, at least at that time. I think eventually they did, just for simplicity's sake, to have all their stuff on the same platform. But for years they did not. And then we started Happen, and whenever you are no longer a developer and you have to kind of explore all the options, you kind of lose that partiality to certain platforms, and have since realized that there's a lot of great use cases for React Native. We've built a couple different apps for people using React Native, and I won't say that I've grown like to where it's my favorite platform in the world, but it's actually it's very useful. It's still not to the point where you can code one single code base and deploy everywhere, but you can save a lot of time with it for sure. And so I think whereas if you give me all the unlimited budget or a really big budget for things, I'd still prefer to build things native for more complex applications. For a lot of use cases, React Native works great, and it's a lot more economical.
Well, just kick this around for a second, because I've tilted at this windmill for over a decade, probably more than that. But it's like, why with HTML5, right? You get location services and some other nice things. Like why don't we just build mobile friendly web apps? Why do we
as
need
opposed
to be
to apps in general?
Yeah, why do you need to be in the store? Because the app stores are always changing the rules, and there's a lot of legal junk you got to go through, and there's a financial tax.
Yeah, I can't quote statistics right off the top of my head, but like there's a ton of statistics on if you're looking for repeat users. Like it's one thing if you're like let's say you have an event coming up and you're just wanting to like do this. It's a real expensive event. You want people to do it one time. Like a web app probably makes total sense. But like when you want customer engagement repeatedly, you're never going to get the same out of a web app. I'm going to use like a website, right? A mobile website. People will say like, oh, you could just save the link onto your phone. Sure, you can, but nobody's going to. No one does that, right? Like,
right.
It's not how people use phones. They use apps, and so most of people's time on phones is spent in apps. And whereas a lot of that's on the browser, if it's on the browser, it's because they're browsing, not because they're using a product. If they're using a product, they're within an app. And so I think that's just how you get more user engagement, and you can control the user experience a lot more. So, I mean, with that, like, I'm still not going to always talk somebody into using an app. Like, there's definitely times where someone wants an app, and it's like, I mean, you don't have a use case for an app because you want this thing that someone's going to use like once every other year. Like, I'm going to delete that app so fast. Like, I'm not going to use. I don't want to take up space on my phone for.
Yeah.
And I'm not a like keep my phone. I probably have. I won't even admit how many apps I probably have open on my phone right now. I'm not one of those keep everything nice and neat. But if you want me to download an app to do an action one single time, like it's not what they're for. So,
but if it's over and over and over and over,
yeah. But if you want engagement, like you can't expect people to be logging back into their browser, app, window every time. It's just not a good experience.
So maybe rapid prototype on a web app, and then once you get it kind of settled, then spend the money.
But that's not necessarily that much faster, right? Like if you're talking. It depends on what the purpose of your prototype is, but if your prototype's purpose is to get like stakeholders in, then it should just be like a Figma prototype that's clickable, that shows kind of how it works. And if your prototype is to like, you want to prove that users will use it, you're not going to accomplish that with a web app, because you can't prove that somebody's going to daily use an app by putting it in the web. They're not going to use it. So you're going to like set yourself up for failure. Like you have to, if it's going to be a prototype, it has to be in the environment that someone will actually use it. So
makes sense.
I don't know. It kind of depends what your goals are.
Well, and that's that usability argument, right? Just like colors on a button matter. Will you even open the app matters? One little hesitation, you're going to have a huge drop off in uptake.
For sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to go back to your wife. Your early lessons of family prioritization. I mean, I feel like I feel very strongly that, family's important, jobs come and go, projects come and go, your family's going to be there forever. Do you feel good about that decision? And then,
yes, for sure. Coming up on 15 years married, my 15-year anniversary is in January. So,
hey, congrats.
Feel very good about that decision. Yeah. So I totally agree. Like, I think, and that's something that Nicole and I have kind of put first from the start is like, if this company is not allowing us the freedom to, love our families better and ultimately spend more time with them, like what's the point of it, right? Like, and allow other people to do the same. Like, why are we doing it? So that's kind of always been at the forefront of, starting Happen. I'll actually tell you a story where I screwed that up, honestly. Mm-hmm. Early on, I think I was there was so much pressure, right, to make it work, right? I'm still, working a full-time job and having meetings over lunch and basically trying to fake it till I could make it kind of thing. And I was wrong on so many different things about what that was going to take. But one of the things was that I thought I had to respond to every single person immediately. And so, my phone would go off and I'd, go find it and pick it up and respond to somebody. And it was exhausting in the evenings, right? Like my wife wants me to help take care of my newborn at home, and I'm sitting here at the evenings at the dinner table responding to emails. And I'll never forget the statement she said to me. She's like, you've been very clear with employers, like in your initial interviews, of like what kind of employee you are, right? Like if they have I've always told people, like, if you have an emergency a couple times a year, I'll be your guy to stay late. But if your definition of an emergency is every single week you've got a project deadline that you want me working crazy hours, that's not me. Like I go home when work's over. And so she said, but with your own company, you're constantly on. Like you check your phone all the time. Like I think she's like, it's up to you to define what kind of company you're building, and are you going to build a company that you would work for? And I was like, oh man,
yeah, smart.
So I went to work the next day, and I was like, Nicole, we got to talk. Like, and it wasn't him. Like it wasn't like he was pushing me. Like it was just something I needed to hear. and still reflect on of like, I want to make sure I, build a company that I would work for and that, people want to work for. And so, we try to push that very, very strongly.
And then take that one step further. What was the so one step further when you at some point you came to a decision, hey, I got to do this full time. I got to jump in, burn the boats. So what was that moment? Was there a catalyst?
Yeah, there was.
What'd your wife say? She seems pretty smart.
So it was half decision, half a push. So
okay,
right when COVID hit, enterprise took a big hit, and they started laying people off. Right. So the first round of layoffs, they laid off my manager and his manager, and so suddenly there were 170 people. Like, hey, Adam, do you know where we can find such and such? And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Like, why are you asking me this question? Meanwhile, our son was born, and I, then took time off for this. It was, a month in, and sorry, get a cough drop. So I had to step out of work in the middle of like nobody has a manager. And now I have to go, spend time in the NICU with a newborn, and then they made a second round of layoffs, and I was cut in the second round of layoffs. Literally had the remote meeting while I was in the NICU, like video call, find out that I'm laid off.
That's a bad
in
day.
the NICU with my second child. Thankfully, when the first round of layoffs happened, I had called one of our customers with Happen, which had just been like something we did on the side, and trying to get going. I called one of those customers and I'm like, you've been talking a lot about converting your kind of organization over to Agile. They had been like in the past were more of a, waterfall based organization. It's like, we're doing some development stuff with you guys. Agile is what I've, been doing for enterprise for a while now, like, leading. At that time, we had a team of about 30 people that I was leading. And I was like, why don't I come on and lead your Agile transformation for you? So I'll come on as a contractor. Like he knew, what I was doing with Happen, obviously. And I'll leave enterprise and come on and run, kind of, or help organize your Agile transformation. In the meantime, I can also lead some projects for you and we can continue this partnership with Happen, and I won't double bill you for any hours, right? You're just gonna, if I'm leading a project with Happen, I'm still the same, the same person for you. So, over the course of about a month, we had more conversations and talked to the rest of his leadership, and ended up it being a great thing for both of us. And so, I went full time for Happen, was a contractor for his organization, and loved it. It was great. Like they're just an awesome group of people, which I already knew that. Like I knew that I would mesh with them well, and it was the perfect opportunity to, rather than go get a different job, to like ease my way into full time with Happen. And so it was great. I got on a couple different projects with them, started kind of meeting their whole development team, doing one-on-one meetings with them, kind of learning how they think and operate, and then started kind of implementing this big change throughout the organization to how they deliver projects. So, and then went down to halftime and then quarter time, and then eventually stepped out of it completely. And now we just do some project work and some staffing with them.
Nice. Well, do you want to talk about your workout routine? It's kind of an oddball curveball from nowhere, but like, how do people deal with stress as a business owner, is a big deal. You seem to have your priorities really well in line.
Yeah, it was funny that came up in our conversation the other day. It was something that like I really, really needed in my life. I think working out is one of those things that for some reason most people either do too much of it or not enough of it. I feel like there's very few people who just like, yeah, I kill it at that. I do. I do my hour a day or a couple hours a week or whatever it is. And I was definitely on the not enough of it, clearly. And so I had a couple friends who had joined this, we call it a cult, I guess. I thought they were in a cult. And they were like, you got to join this. It's great. And I'm like, what time did you say it was? And they said 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, nope. 5:30 in the morning is the middle of the night. I am not interested. So, kept on pushing on me. And, I get to the point where I told literally one of my best friends in the world, I was like, you should go find a new thing that and I don't care what it is to try to convince me of. I mean, throw a dart and I guarantee you have better odds than getting me to show up at one of these. Like, it is not going to happen.
Okay.
And now I'm on the regional leadership team for this organization.
Okay.
So, it's called F3. It stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. It is an all men's workout group. It has 5 core principles. It's free. It's held outdoors, rain or shine. It's open to all men. It's peer-led in a rotating fashion and always ends in a circle of trust. So what that equates to is a bunch of guys getting together at local parks, all around the world. It's most heavily attended in the U.S., but there's groups all over the world. And just guys get together at local parks. A different person leads every day and does workout. And it's super fun. And the circle of trust thing is just they ask you to share whatever's going on in your life, share your wins, share your losses, share your struggles, and people will lift each other up, and they'll ask throughout the week, like, hey, how's that thing going that you said was tough, or how's your mom, you said she was sick, or whatever. And so it's this they say it's faith-based. It's not like a Christian organization or a Catholic organization or something like that. It's like, and there's people from all different types of religions, or in some atheists, and there's all different belief systems, but it's more about believing that you're not the center of the universe. And so it's really cool. I think that's probably why I keep going, because I probably wouldn't do it if it was just about the working out part, but it's that kind of community bond type thing, to show up there with a bunch of guys and climb up and down a hill, or lift concrete blocks, or play ultimate frisbee in the dark with a light up frisbee, or just we do all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's an absolute blast. It's been a huge change in my life, and I feel a lot better physically and better mentally. So it's definitely made me a better person. It's been great.
And I think you said something about if you had to pick one of 3 things, where that was, the F3 was one of them.
Yeah,
to sacrifice. Right.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something about if you made me make a big change about my job, or if you made me move to a different state, or you told me I couldn't be a part of this group anymore with F3, I would change one of the other 2 before I would completely stop being a part of this group. It's just such a, I think there will be a day where we'll look up as a society and be able to see a visual impact that this group of guys made. And not that it'll just be through the guys, but just through the families that the guys, had impacts on. And it's just a big deal. And it's cool to I'll travel. I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and drove to we call them beat downs. Drove to a beat down in downtown Greenville with a bunch of guys I never knew. Show up, tell my name and work out with them, and then by the end of it, feel like you're great friends, because you're all speaking the same, calling everything the same language, and doing your workout together, and then you end with some coffee and hanging out and kind of sharing what's going on in your life. And I don't know, it's just cool to be able to go and do that anywhere, and have that available completely free. Yeah. So it's really cool.
How cool is that? That is awesome.
Yeah. It's
all right.
Fun.
Last question. It's about travel and getting out there in the world. Surely you got some awesome travel stories. I know you mentioned Turkey earlier. You got any great travel stories you want to share with us?
But I haven't done enough in Turkey to recommend Turkey. I'll say that if you get stuck in Turkey and you're really tired, whatever they're charging for the airport inside of that hotel, or the hotel inside of that airport, is worth it. Because I paid way too much to sleep 5 hours, and I would do it again in a heartbeat because I was very tired. But good travel stories, man. Mikola would answer this question a lot better because that guy travels everywhere. But when the opportunity comes up, go to Ukraine. That place, like to give an example, we ran into a lady in Lviv, and I don't remember why we were talking to her. She asked us some question, and she was from a very random country, like nowhere nearby there, and not from the U.S. I don't remember where from. And we asked her, like, what are you doing in Ukraine? And she's like, my trip got canceled because of COVID restrictions in this other country I was to go visit. So I just picked a random country on the map. Like, she literally like closed her eyes, spun a map, put her finger down, and decided to go to Ukraine, and like loved it. Like, I'm saying how it was one of the best trips she's ever been on. She's traveled a lot of the world, and like it is such a rich culture. Like it is very, very impressive. And honestly, because of that, like it's kind of messed up Mykola's standards. Mykola's went around the world a lot and he's seen a lot. And so I think, he'll go to some place that we think of as, real touristy and amazing. And he'll be like, I mean, it's okay. I can do all that in Lviv. So and he's not lying. You can, like, it's got a lot to offer. So, that was a big thing I really, really enjoyed that. Aside from that, my wife and I haven't done a ton of extravagant travel. I'm more of a go retreat into the woods and do some fishing and some hiking. And I'm a quiet vacation person. I like to kind of get away. And when I get out there and my cell phone doesn't work, I know I've succeeded in vacation.
That's awesome. Well, maybe we'll go on a jet together when the dust clears in Europe and take a trip over there.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. So,
Adam, if people want to follow up with you after this, what's a great way to get in touch with you on the internet?
Yeah, well, they can find me at our website, happentechnologies.com. We're on there, and LinkedIn as well. You can look us up on LinkedIn, or either my profile or Happen's profile. I can throw you some links that you can put out there. If you're local in St. Louis, reach out. We've got an event that we do monthly called Bourbon Club that we sponsor. It's at the Reserve here in Creve Coeur area, and we have about 100 people come out monthly. So if you're looking to do some business networking and enjoy having a drink of whiskey, reach out and I can get you on the list.
Sounds awesome. Well, it's been great having you, Adam, and bye for now.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us in the Sky Lounge. Please like and subscribe to hear more from Tales from the Sky Lounge here and anywhere else you get your podcasts.